Hey, what's up everybody? I'm Bill and welcome back to X-Plane 11. We're just doing some fake air work in 444 Foxtrot Gulf in the El Toro practice area just south of John Wayne Airport. And I wanted to show you guys a really cool procedure that really shows off the power of PilotEdge. So it's pretty cool. We're going to do a practice approach into John Wayne. So I'm a real world student pilot. I obviously fly only VFR in the real world, and because of that, I typically just fly VFR in PilotEdge and in X-Plane. I really don't want to get bogged down with instrument flying procedures and all that stuff. There's a lot. To get instrument rated, it's a lot of extra stuff that you got to learn. And as I'm starting to learn the VFR stuff, I don't want to get confused with any IFR stuff. But a practice approach is pretty fun, and it's a nice change of pace if you're a VFR pilot, and it gives you kind of an introduction to briefing an approach plate and what it feels like basically to be handheld by ATC to a final approach fix. So what I'm going to do is just kind of replicate what I've done in the real world to request this practice approach into John Wayne for 20 right. We're going to use the ILS to 20 right. So right now we're flying VFR, just kind of circling around. We're squawked 1200. We're not, we haven't established two-way radio communications with anybody. We're not in John Wayne's airspace. So the first thing we got to do is pick up flight following. So we have to connect with approach and tell them where we are and what we would like to do. In the real world, I always try to cold call approach. They'll usually give me a beacon code or squawk code and usually ident, because their airspace is a lot busier than PilotEdge's. So when I get a code from PilotEdge, he's going to see me right away, and he's not going to need me to ident. So that's a little bit different. But what I'm going to do is just cold call him, and he's going to ask me probably to give me his request, or give me my request, give him my request, and we'll go from there. Now this is just like flight following. It's controller discretion. It's based on workload. So if he's too busy to give me flight following, he can say unable. And this, obviously the same goes with real world. That doesn't happen too often in PilotEdge, but it has happened before. So I'm still going to ask it, and just like real world, like I'm going to ask this conversationally. There's no real special way to ask this. I mean, we're going to request practice approach for the ILS 20 right, if able or something like that, you can always say. And if there's not too many arrivals coming in, or they can sequence you in with, if it's a downtime at John Wayne or whatever airport you're doing this at, they might be able to fit you in there. So we'll get this set up, and he's going to give us some instructions after we get in contact with him. So according to our VFR sectional chart, we need to contact SoCal Approach on 1241 when we're in this area. So we just go 1241. There we go. Switch to that. And this is Tracon, so this is the SoCal Approach, guys. And we need to give him location, and we need to give him an altitude.
Alright, clear that 5, maintain 7, 11
and like I said, in the real world, usually they'll just, if you just say, if you give them those two things, they'll give you a squawk code, and then they'll ask you what you want. They want to see where you are first. PilotEdge sometimes doesn't work that way all the time, depending on how busy it is. So he might just ask for my full request here. So let's give this a shot.
If not, I'm Tango Fort Airborne on this frequency for 1 private November.
Let's get back up to our 3500. Gotta make sure we don't jump in here and step on anybody. SoCal Approach, Archer 444, Foxtrot Gulf 3500 over El Toro practice area.
Archer 444 Foxtrot Golf, local approach request.
Yeah, we'd like to pick up flight following and get the practice approach, if possible, for 20 right on the ILS at John Wayne. We've got the weather, 444 Foxtrot Golf.
Archer 4 Foxtrot Golf, squawk 5650.
Squawking 5650, 444 Foxtrot Golf. Okay, so 56.
Premier 02, whiskey, turn left heading
50.
100, vector for approach.
5650.
100
So we're on alt mode. So he's going to now make contact with us on his radar.
Premier 02, whiskey, clear visual approach, runway 28 right, contact Montgomery Tower, 119.2.
I'm clear for the visual, contact tower 9, 119.2, thanks.
CBM 30 Charlie, change to advisory frequency approved, report cancellation of IFR, this frequency. Archer 4 Foxtrot Golf, radar contact. Flight heading 330, vector to final approach course, maintain VFR.
Okay, maintaining VFR and heading 330, 444 Foxtrot Golf. All right, so 330. So he's given us a heading. Now I'm going to go on autopilot just so this is a little bit easier to maintain altitude and heading. The just flight arrow is a little bit tricky to fly precisely like that. So 330. So we go to our heading bug, and we're just going to go to 330. These are called vectors. He's given us a heading, but these are kind of referred to as vectors. So we need to. He's basically sending us to the beginning of the ILS. So wherever we're at when we request this, he's sending us to where the ILS starts, managing us around traffic and any obstructions like the mountains. So he's not going to send us over here into these mountains. He's going to send us, you know, at you know, considering our altitude, appropriate route to get to the beginning of the ILS. Now, if you're doing this as a practice approach as a VFR pilot, you need to brief the plate. You got to know roughly what it's doing, where you're going, what the altitudes are. So I'm at 3,500. Yes, I mean I'm at 3,450, but he's going to send us to the beginning of the ILS for 20 right, which has an altitude of 3,500 feet. That's where it starts. So if you know that and you start
Archer 4 Foxtrot Golf, heading 335.
335, 444 Foxtrot Golf. Okay, so we're gonna go 335. So there is 335 right there. So a little bit to the right. But since we've briefed the plate and we know that the ILS starts at 3,500 feet, we make our request at 3,500 feet, and that just makes it a little bit easier. So now we just have to maintain that altitude. And again, we're 50 feet low. So then the second thing is you want to make sure you've got the ILS actually dialed in. And the ILS frequency for the 20 right approach is 11175. So we put that into our localizer, pops up here, and it's tied to this nav1, this OBS here. We're out of range of it, so we got the two flags. And then it's already set, but you know, if it's like over here, we need to make sure that it's set for runway 20, which is of course at the heading of 20. And it's 201, I think. So I think like in reality, like it's one click over, but just for simplicity, this has worked. So we're just going to go to 200. So that's all set up. So I'm going to get up to exactly 3,500 feet. We're not doing anything until he tells us. And we don't have to. The beauty about this practice approach is we don't have to file an IFR flight plan. We don't have to, you know, have any routing necessary besides just what he's telling us to do right now. So if you're, you know, wanting an introduction to instrument flying or
traffic 1 o'clock, 2 miles, crossing right to left, altitude indicates 3,300.
Okay, we'll be looking out for that traffic. 444 Foxtrot Golf. Don't see him. There's a lot of PilotEdge drones out here, and he is actually. I think I might see him. Nope. It's just a little graphical glitch. So now that I said negative contact, or like I did not, I told him I'm looking. He's still responsible for keeping me away from him, or updating me on his location, since I did not tell him I have him in sight. But anyway, so this is a way to introduce yourself to some instrument procedures without having to be one instrument rated, but also without having to do everything leading up to the approach. And it's a nice break from the typical, enter left downwind, runway 20 left kind of stuff. It shakes it up a little bit. And from a sim perspective, which is why I love this in PilotEdge so much, is you can play around with weather, you can play around with minimums, and it's a lot of fun. Now in the real plane, doing this in real life at John Wayne, it's a little bit boring. Which is why I love flying VFR, even in PilotEdge, because it's up to me to navigate the VFR charts and make sure that I'm compliant with airspace and all that stuff. This is, all I am doing is making sure the plane's running well and that everything is where it should be. Whoa, hey, weather update. Looking out for traffic. Let's let this thing settle, get wings level. Airport is just right over the wing here. Airport's right there. So he's just sending us in a big arc to pick up the beginning of the ILS. So this takes out a lot of guesswork, which I like. I like being able to, feel like I'm in control. We're just listening for headings. He's just vectoring us around. Now once this should pop in, the localizer should pop in pretty soon here. The glide slope indicator, which is this horizontal one, is not going to come in for a little bit longer, but this, there's the localizer right there. So when this is lined up, that's telling us that we're lined up horizontally with the runway. This one is the glide slope, that's telling us how low or high we are. But this plane has an actual localizer autopilot setting, which you could fly this by hand. So when I did it, I flew it by hand, and to me it seems like it's easier. This plane's kind of a pain in the butt to trim to get the descent rate right. Here's Lake Irvine. There's not that much water in there now. So I'm gonna try to wrestle this thing down. We might just fly it by hand a little bit earlier. But I mean, we're heading away from the airport right now, and again, the goal is to loop us around. If we look at where we're at here, we're trying to get lined up with this imaginary line that's going out here. So you can see we're gonna kind of get turned to the left here a little bit as well.
Delta 4452, clear to Bob Hope Airport, VFR heading 175, radar access to Seal Beach, Venice filed, maintain 5000, expect 6,000 minutes after departure, departure frequency 128.1, squawk 4163.
He is busy right now, so it's nice that he's given us these practice approaches.
Delta 4452 back here.
We do have some traffic out here. There's a guy out here somewhere flying around. An actual human, not a PilotEdge drone. Okay, still got the airport over our left wing. Okay, right there. We're getting pretty close to the beginning of the approach. You can see the needle right here. It's going to start moving over to the left here. Right now it's pinned because we're way far left. So this is us, and this is the localizer, if that makes any sense. So this is telling us that we're left of the localizer, which is pretty obvious when you look at where you are in the runway. We are clearly left of the approach. Now, we could just fly like this, right? This is kind of the point of instruments. 220, 444 Foxtrot Golf. Okay, so 220. Let's get this thing here. So 220, we just move our heading bug here, and since we're on autopilot, it's just going to start turning. But we could set this heading bug to 220 and just hand fly it as well. But we'll start seeing this thing come in quicker. Runway heading is 200 and we're at 220, so we're just basically going to dissect that.
Archer 4, Foxtrot Golf, 5 miles from Lemon, maintain 3000 until established on the localizer. ILS runway 20 right, practice approach approved.
Okay, we'll maintain 3000 until established. Cleared for ILS 20 left, 20 right, practice approach, 444 Foxtrot Golf. So used to saying 20 left. Alright, so we're going to go off autopilot. Or actually, I take that back. Let's go to, we're going to unhook the altitude, and we're going to maintain 3000. So we're going to just kind of descend, and we're going to turn this on to localizer. Now, some planes have this, some planes don't, but we're going to go from heading bug to localizer, and it's going to actually keep this lined up for us, or we don't have to do anything except worry about trying to trim this little buddy. So there, now it's intercepting the localizer, and it's turning into it, and it's going to line up perfectly right there. So maintain 3000, we're above 3000 now, so we basically can't go below 3000 until we're established. We're established now, so we're fine. But you can see right here, the goal is to make this be just perpendicular, make it across. And you can see here that we are, according to the PAPI lights, lined up perfectly. And as long as we keep those things lined up, it'll take us all the way down to the runway perfectly. And part of briefing that plate is to know what the minimums are, and that's real IFR stuff where you're talking about weather. But the minimums for the ILS for 20 right is 255. So we could have autopilot on until 255 feet, basically, is what that means. And if we didn't see the airport, if we were flying IFR, 126.8, 444 Foxtrot Golf. Thanks for the help. So let's go to 126.8. So now we're going to tower. So we were on SoCal approach, and we're going to tower. So we're under 9 miles. We're about 8 miles out. We're just going to give them a generic weather as well. Joey Tower, Archer 444 Foxtrot Golf, descending through 3000. Practice approach ILS, runway 20 right. Forgot to give him a weather.
Runway 20 right, clear to land, wind 190 at 8.
Clear to land 20 right, 444 Foxtrot Golf. Okay, so we could go check the gas. Let's get the undercarriage down. This is going to really screw up my autopilot or trim situation, so we're going to just disconnect that. And we're going to go extra full rich. And we're going to go props. Okay, so we're high now. We're good on the localizer, but we're really high. And if we look at the lights here, we can see we're just one red. So we want to lower that down a little bit. It's not as critical with a small G8 plane like this as it is with, you know, airliner 737 coming in here. But for practice purposes, let's just try to keep that as centered as possible. So now you can see there we got the glide slope coming in, and we can see that we're now two white and 2 red. I am a student pilot. I am not instrument rated. this is IFR stuff. I have refrained from learning any of that, even in the simulator, because I don't want it to. I don't want to get confused with it. I don't want it to bog me down with my PPL studying.
1268, 4452.
That being said, it is pretty fun to do this, and having the real world experience of doing it makes it fun to request in PilotEdge a little bit.
4452, holding short.
Breaks up the
20
typical VFR approaches.
Are you ready for immediate departure?
Left downwind, enter right base,
I am ready to go.
enter straight in.
Delta 4422 traffic is
Getting
a,
vectored around
departure, 4-mile final.
is not very exciting, but it is cool when
20 right, cleared for takeoff.
when you get those last
Okay,
couple
cross
vectors,
20
and you
left,
can
ready
start
for takeoff,
seeing
4452.
the runway come in. It is pretty cool.
Right, cleared for immediate takeoff.
Again, we're just flying this by hand and trying to keep this lined
Clear
up.
for immediate takeoff, 4452.
We're, we could do this.
Archer 4, Fox Golf, and Braille 170, departure is prior to arrival.
Did they say that? Yeah, we've got the traffic in sight, 444 Foxtrot Golf. Okay, so yeah, we got a little Embraer taking off there. We're far enough out here where he's just gonna send him. He's not gonna have him hold. We're 3.5 miles out, doing 85. So all we got to do is just keep an eye on him. If he aborts and is stuck on the runway, we will either go around or move over to 20 left. In real life, I would have moved over to 20 left by now, because it's just too busy to have have a VFR little GA guy land on 20 right most of the time. They will allow you sometimes, but we're gonna continue on at 20 right.
Delta 4452, head to abort takeoff. I'm clear of the runway.
See, he aborted takeoff. Interesting.
Roger, we'd like to taxi back, or do we need to hold?
No, I'm going to go taxi back 4452. I got to check something out. It's a new aircraft I'm trying out. Thank you.
Interesting.
Delta
So
44,
we were.
runway 20 right.
That never happens in
Bravo
PilotEdge.
Lima,
That
ready
is
to
very, very cool.
Okay, Bravo Lima.
So yeah,
Hold short.
he aborted that. He got clear of the runway, and we're still good to go here. The closer you get, the more sensitive these instruments become. So you can see like we're still looking good. I mean, we're high according to the lights as well, but this is showing us like way higher than we would be if it was showing this, when we were 8 miles out. So it does get more sensitive, both localizer and glide slope. And once we see two red, we'll know that we're perfectly on glide slope, and our instrument will show us that as well. So there's full flaps in there, looking much better now. We are pretty high, so 255 is actually the minimum. So if we didn't see the airport right now, if we were in bad weather, we would abort right now, which is pretty low. I may not have the altimeter set as we go 4 red, which is not good. Okay, let's make sure my trim is okay. I don't want to botch this landing because that would be embarrassing. There's our traffic to our right. And we got plenty of runway, and we're going to be exiting off the end of it, so we can let it float a little bit. Bring the power back.
That's 320, traffic 12 o'clock, 2 miles, crossing left to right.
Okay.
Altitude indicates 5,600.
And no brakes. I'm just going to hold back pressure. You can see the elevator just got full back pressure on the elevator, and that's given us some aerodynamic braking, so we don't have to.
Archer 4, Fox Golf, turn left next taxi. We taxi the parking via Alpha, monitor ground. Have a good day.
Okay, exiting left at Echo, monitor ground, taxi via Alpha, 444 Foxtrot Golf. Thanks. He's go ground, 20.8. So there you go. It is, again, what I like about the practice approaches is it's an instrument approach. It's clearing us to do an ILS or an RNAV or a GPS approach into an airport without having to file IFR or even knowing what any of that is. Brief the plate, look at it, read it, look at some YouTube videos to kind of help decipher what a lot of that means. And ILS is the easiest for me. I enjoy, watching, trying to get these lined up. And sometimes I'll dial in an ILS approach if I'm not even requesting the ILS, just to have that as a reference on, if you're coming in straight in for some runways or some airports. But give it a shot. If you've got PilotEdge, give it a shot. If you don't have PilotEdge, I highly recommend it. If you're a sim flyer, if you're an aspiring real-world pilot, PilotEdge has helped me get to my solo with just 6.7 hours. So it really, really does work. We should probably leave this thing up. And that guy made it. Look at him go. All right.
Delta 4452, contact departure.
Good job, buddy.
Departure 4452.
So yeah, if you don't have PilotEdge, there's a 2-week trial. I'll link it in the description. Highly, highly recommend it. It's a lot of fun. All these procedures are identical to real world, with very, very, very few exceptions. So give it a shot. Try a practice approach. They're a lot of fun. Even if you're just a VFR pilot, it's an easy way to get your feet wet with some instrument flying. So thank you so much for watching, guys. If you liked the video, give me a subscribe. Smash that subscribe button, or whatever the hell kids are saying. Got some real world flying videos on there as well, and obviously some X-Plane stuff. And follow on Twitch. Follow along live. We've got a very active chat, which is a lot of fun. A lot of real world pilots, a lot of flight simmers in there. We've got a lot of fun. So if you enjoyed this, we'd love to have you live. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. We will see you next time. Peace out.